We see you, a sacrifice for those too often left to die. There are moments in history when conscience must stop being polite. When the polite thing, quiet condolences, well-meaning hashtags and ritualized shock, becomes complicity by omission. Today the catalogue of suffering is too long, the pile of unanswerable grief too tall. From Gaza to eastern Congo, from Ethiopia's forgotten valleys to the highlands where Kurds and Armenians live under the shadow of renewed brutality, whole populations are being asked to bear what the rest of the world refuses to name: systematic denial of dignity, safety, and life itself. This is not a piece about statistics. It is a call from one heart to 1,000 others. We see you. We will not let your erasure be routine. We are choosing sacrifice, not as a one-off gesture but as a way of life, because the alternative is silence that buries people alive. Look at the facts and you will find the evidence of failure. Aid that once kept children from starving is being cut back even as need explodes. Millions now teeter on the knife edge between crisis and famine. Hospitals lie in ruins or barely function. Infectious diseases sweep into populations already weakened by hunger and displacement. These are not remote tragedies. They are the predictable outcomes of political choices made by distant capitals, funding shortfalls, and the everyday toleration of policies that treat whole communities as expendable. But facts alone are indifferent to suffering. We must attach a face, a name, a story. We think of a mother we never met who wraps a thin shawl around a child with a belly swollen from hunger. Of a teenage boy whose bright laugh was replaced by the dull look of someone who has watched neighbors die without an ambulance arriving. Of an elderly woman who has lived through one war only to find herself fleeing yet again. These are the human faces the headlines barely permit. We cannot be content to read their pain and go on with our lives as if our civility is intact. This struggle is not ideological. It is not about choosing sides in a distant power play. It is a basic human demand. The right to live, to be treated with decency, to be protected from wanton violence. When governments strip people of those rights, whether through direct violence, through engineered neglect, or through transactional indifference, we are left with a moral ledger that cannot be balanced by platitudes. We must act. What does sacrifice look like? It looks like refusing the comfort of complacency. It looks like laboring to keep aid convoys moving when corridors are closed. Furthermore, it looks like publishing the names of the dead so that their deaths cannot be laundry listed into anonymity. It looks like lobbying, organizing, protesting. And when those avenues fail, it looks like keeping the story alive witness by witness until policy changes. Sacrifice is not glamorous. It is the stubborn refusal to permit a headline to be the full funerary ritual of a person's life. We are not naive. We know that for many who suffer, the relentless machinery of geopolitics, interests in land, resources, power, will not be altered by goodwill alone. But moral clarity is a lever. Public outrage, when harnessed persistently and honestly, can realign priorities and, crucially, force accountability. We owe that to those who will not live to see the next election, to those whose schools are rubble, to those whose names are choked in lists of missing persons. And so we say to the people of Palestine, the Congolese, the Uyghurs, the Kurds, the Ethiopians, the Armenians, and the countless others whose struggles do not fill evening broadcasts. We see you. We love you. We are fighting for you. Perhaps we are not yet strong enough to stop the bombs, the hunger, the deportations, the forced silences. But our strength is cumulative. The small protests, the letters to representatives, the donations to grassroots relief groups, the translations of testimony, the relentless sharing of evidence. These accumulate into pressure. History is not written only by generals and technocrats. It is written by the insistence of ordinary people who refuse to accept that injustice is permanent. If this sounds like a sentimental plea, let it be sentimental, but let it also be strategic. The world's institutions respond when moral pressure meets political calculation. That is why we must be both tender and unrelenting. We must be the unignorable chorus that insists on humanitarian access, insists on independent investigations, insists that aid is not a bargaining chip, and that borders do not become mausoleums of negotiations. To those who fear the cost of taking a stand, understand that inaction carries its own price. The erosion of a shared sense of humanity corrodes societies from within. Nations that become comfortable with the suffering of others end up teaching a fearful, hardened civic culture to their children. The currency of indifference buys us a future where cruelty is easier still. If we want a world where our own vulnerabilities are treated with care, we must refuse to normalize the suffering of strangers. This is not merely a call for tears. It is a call for sustained, organized compassion, the kind that shows up day after day. Donate. Protest. Hold your representatives accountable. Pressure institutions that fund repression through silence or incentives. Support independent journalism and human rights monitoring. Teach your neighbors that these are not other people's problems. When millions are made invisible, visibility is a powerful form of protection. History will judge us not by our outrage but by our endurance. We cannot promise immediate victory, but we can promise fidelity. To name the abused, to insist on the injured, to remember those who are pushed into the margins. Sacrifice is not noble because it is dramatic. It is noble because it is constant. We will keep vigil in the small ways available to us until the politics that allow mass suffering are changed. We see you. We grieve with you. We will not walk away.